Hey there! Today's tutorial is a brute from Amnesia The Dark Descent. I show you here how I made the face prosthetic and the application of it. This was not hard to make, it just takes a little bit of time. I recommend giving yourself 3 days to a week to prep this depending on how much you procrastinate doing it. The only things I used were liquid latex, plasticine, air dry clay, hot glue, and paint. So let's get to it. Starting off with the face cast. This isn't essential as long as you have a good map of where your features are on whatever you are sculpting. I dump pretty much all the plasticine I had on the cast. I believe this was about 1 to 1.5 kilos of plasticine. And I carve out my eyes and mouth so that I know I will be able to see and breathe. Then I add the divide between the two sides it has. This and the lips and the nose will act as anchor points to adhere it to our faces. If I were doing this again, I would add even more anchor points. And by anchor points, I mean areas on the sculpt that I carve way down to the face cast so that I know that these prosthetic areas are going to be glued straight onto my face. Then I carve out the shape of the inside of its face, roughly mapping out where I'm going to put the teeth. My teeth and gum placement is being strategic because I want to be able to cover my eyes, nose, and mouth. The teeth are going to be overhanging these eye holes so that I can still see. And I'm following the pictures of the brute that I can see online to add these kind of skin petal, skin fold things it's got going on. I do the same for the other side and am mapping out the teeth as well as the eye on this side as well. Now I have the bulk shape of the face down, I can carve out a couple extra spots around my eyes so that I can kind of see. Honestly, add as many of these little holes as you can. You want to be able to see as much as possible, as long as they are unobtrusive and don't ruin the illusion. Then I sculpted out the teeth and eyeball with some air dry clay. The incisors are just blocky rectangles and the molars are rough cubes that I pressed a cross into with a popsicle. Oh, and if you were wondering, I sculpted all of this piece with that bent piece of wire that you see, a popsicle stick, and my hands. You don't need great sculpting tools to get started. Then I push the teeth and eyes into the face where I wanted to see them, so that I could make sure that they would stay there and that they have little indents that I can glue them into later when I've built up the prosthetic. As you can see, with the 2 incisors on the left are covering my eye opening there, and the 3 on the right are covering that eye hole. Then I covered everything in latex. I covered the deepest areas in pure liquid latex about 2 to 3 times, and the rest only twice with just latex. I left the teeth in for the first few coats and then took them out, arranging them on my bench how that they would fit in the mask so I don't have them all jumbled later. Then I cover most of the prosthetic in a tissue and latex build up for strength. Because of this method, there is no reason to add a lot of details in the sculpt, as these fine details will be lost. This is based off a pretty old game now, so the models weren't actually that detailed anyway. After the build-up, I think I add another layer of latex and tissue build-up to the skin flaps that are holding themselves upright, as they are not going to be anchored to my face and I want them to be able to hold themselves up. Then I spot on a little liquid latex anywhere that I can still see plasticine. Then I powder it with baby powder everywhere and peel it, making sure to powder the inside when I do. Latex and plasticine don't bond, so it should come off pretty easily, and then I put it back on the sculpt so it's supported for the next steps. If you were like me and impatient and didn't really have enough layers of liquid latex, you may have caused a few rips, but don't worry, just go back in with latex and tissue and cover those. Then we paint it. I used acrylic because this isn't on my skin and it's not super mobile, so the acrylic won't crack. I messily fill in the mouth area with a red, brown, black mix of paint and clean up while it's still wet with a wet tissue anywhere I got the red that I didn't want it. Then with a mix of white, brown and yellow, I fill in the skin. And then I decided to highlight the edge of the skin flaps too with white and add a bunch of veins with a light brown pink mix inside the mouth area. These are kind of just to explain the motley latex build-up texture. You can see the veins a little better in this shot, but here in short I glued the teeth in with hot glue in the cavities that were left from pressing them in earlier. For the top overhanging teeth, either hold the teeth in place while the hot glue dries, or you can do what I did and find something to prop them up while it dries. Then I do the same for the other side, and after I glue these in place, I also added more glue, which is a super quick way to make gums over these teeth. And I also used that glue using very small amounts and just trailing the hot glue gun over the eyeball to make little veins. At this point, or even earlier, you should pull the prosthetic off the sculpt and put it on your face to check that you can see. Then I painted the hot glue with reds so they match the rest of the mouth area. Then the teeth and eye were way too white, so I painted the teeth with a yellow brown and added brown cracks and filled the X's of the molars with brown too. And the eye I painted with more of a yellow pink mix, and then added even smaller veins than just those hot glue veins. And of course I added a pupil. Phew, prep done. Now application. You don't need to do everything I do here. You could pair this with normal clothes and you would still come off pretty creepy, but I had to make this match the game. Alternatively, you could go ham and do a full brute costume with its weapons and weird mechanical parts. You do you, boo. Anyway, first I make a poor man's bald cap, wrapping my hair and ears in this case as the brute has no ears, in Glad wrap. And then I cover it with liquid latex. If you have shorter hair and want to wear this out, do this all over your head. As for my thick hair, I have it in a bun, which ruins the illusion of a bald head anyway, so I only do the front. Anywhere the Glad wrap didn't cover well or isn't a nice blend, I add tissue and latex. Some of this probably isn't necessary as my prosthetic covers it, but it also helps adhere the cling wrap to your head so it won't slide around. So talking about the brute's head, if you want to go out in this, I would recommend making more of those skin flap shapes to bring it all the way around your head. Mine stops right at the ears, so my profile shot is a little funky. If you had a full head cast, this will be easy. You just sculpt out the extra skin flaps when you're sculpting the face. If not, maybe hold some plasticine up to your head to sculpt them roughly, then cover them in liquid latex and do all the other steps that we did before. And then when you are attaching the prosthetic to your face, attach those pieces as well. So now we have to color match this bald cap to the prosthetic. I go in a couple times with different shades of yellow, brown and white mixes to get it roughly the same color. Then I map out the brute's neck scar and metal scraps with white cream paint, and I also add texture to my skin. And then I fill in the metal straps with the grey water activated face paint. And I fill the rest of my body with a yellow-brown mix. And then more colour matching. Honestly, colour matching is probably the hardest part of this tutorial. Just keep on adding in colour until it's similar colours. So I go in with white, brown, grey, yellow, just until it matches roughly that I can see. Then I fill in the scar with a black-red mix. Don't take this too far up as we haven't attached the prosthetic yet and you don't know where it's going to align. Now I start detailing and shading because while I could see with this on, it's much easier to do it now. First I re-outline the middle straps with a darker grey and add the nail heads. Then I blend that out with normal grey. And I shade using eyeshadows from the Evepearl Ultimate Irresistible palette, mostly the brown and the black shades, but sometimes I do use the green. I just shade all around these straps. People aren't really going to be looking at this costume, they're going to be looking at your face, so uber realism isn't really essential here. I also shade around the opening of the wound so it looks like the edges are more raised. And I shade in the gross skin texture that I can see in the reference image. If you want to go full 3D for this, you should also add these kind of boily things with prosthetics, and you should also make the neck wounds and later a shoulder wound 3D as well. Then I highlight the edges of the metal with white cream paint, same as I've been using for all of this, Ben Nye Clown White. I first highlight just the edges, but then I highlight the inside of the metal to simulate warping. And with highlight comes shading, so I go in with black near those metal warps. I also shade inside around the edges of the wounds and highlight those raised edges with white and highlight the gross skin. Then I applied spirit gum to the prosthetic and my face and I put it on and pulled back the edges so I could put spirit gum there. And then I pulled this off my face to paint my eyes and lips black. To be honest, I don't really know if this was necessary, but hey, it gave time for the spirit gum to be tacky. You don't need to use spirit gum, of course, you could always just use latex to adhere it. And once it is on my face, I do go in with latex anyway to adhere the edges, just to blend the texture as well as hold it on more tightly because I don't really trust spirit gum. And I add a latex and tissue buildup over any edges that aren't sitting well at all. This does end up drying and changing the colour, so you are going to have to colour match again these edges. Honestly, I couldn't really see the sides of my face here. I could only see one side, and that was not the side facing the camera, so you're going to have to ask someone if these match. While I'm colour matching, you can see how weird this side profile of this monster looks. It's very abrupt, ending at my ears. So again, you're probably going to want to add more skin flaps if you do this and want to go out in it, or I guess you could wear a hoodie. Oh, and I add one more neck wound for good measure because I can see it in the reference image. And I extend the opening in the face across the top of my head. This does prove that I have a pretty good range of visibility to my front, just not to the sides. So looking at this prosthetic and my body, I was like, damn, this face is way too shiny. So rather than powdering the face and potentially muddying up everything that I've already done, I decided to add some shininess to the wounds. I believe I used lip gloss. And then we are finally done. Thank you for sticking through such a long video. I know that was a lot, but I hoped it was somewhat helpful to you. The techniques here, I think you could apply to a lot of other costumes. A clicker from The Last of Us maybe. This definitely felt similar to that with the split face. Or another monster makeup, or other makeup in general. And if you were wondering if I scared anyone in this makeup, no, I didn't. My pets don't give a fluff no matter what I look like, and my family just said I looked gross. Anyway, I will see you guys soon, hopefully with far less intensive makeups. I only have one prep heavy prosthetic look planned before October ends, and the rest are gonna be very simple. Hope to see you then, and stay classy, peeps.
I don't know if candles are the safest thing to have when your vision is a little bit obscured, but who cares?
Ready, set, go. Oh, it looks disgusting.
Oh, that's a beautiful look.